What's going on, guys? My name is Alex. If you don't know me, I am a cinematographer and camera operator based out of New Jersey on the East Coast of the United States. Today, I wanted to basically just take you guys through my first ever commercial shoot that I DP'd recently. I've worked on some commercial shoots in the past, mainly as like an AC or an assistant role. I never really had the opportunity to just like fully be a DP on one of these types of shoots, so this is my first one. A good friend of mine that I've actually met through working through a different production company um, reached out looking for someone to fill this role. It was up in Massachusetts, and I was like, you know what? I'm down. I'll take a ride. I don't mind rides by myself, especially long rides. Gives me just some time to think and enjoy the road. So reached out to him. It was only a 1 day shoot, 3 days total with 2 days of travel. And I was like, heck, I'm in. And I think it worked out pretty well. So I just wanted to do a little lighting breakdown for you guys. So let's get into it. So let's go over the first shot. The first shot we did in a science lab / classroom. We had some tables on the outside that were the lab tables. And then of course, just some basic desks in the middle of the room. So we stuck with the lab table in the corner that had a little fish tank with the pet turtle in there. I just thought it would give some like interest in the background here. But this setup was fairly basic. We kind of got a little more complicated with it. We were kind of like dialing things in here, and there was a few things that I would have liked to change, but we were kind of on a time crunch for a lot of these. So we'll just quick go over what we did here. So we started with a 600X here with, and excuse my drawings, they're not very good, with a basic Light Dome 2. Shooting from our left side here. That highlights our microscope here, as well as the front table here. One of the problems was that we were getting a lot of level down here on the table. So what we decided to do was I threw a little more diffusion in front of the light dome and clipped it on with some 1-inch clips. We also threw a small black card in front as well, just to like cut some more level on there. To get it to a relatively even and lower level to make it somewhat natural. Obviously this shot does still kind of look lit, but I just wanted to mitigate that front level a little bit because then it just looked too obvious. So back to the 600X with the light dome here. Again, we threw a little diffusion in front, just basically like half on the bottom here just to cut this bottom level out area. And that gives us our nice level on her jacket as well as her face up around here. Use my green up around here. Gave her a nice level on the face as well as this nice highlight on the flask that we were going for. And then on the back here, we also have on a stand my Nanlite 500 with just a reflector dish. Basically just shooting up into the ceiling to give some level in that background towards the back right of frame. And then I also boomed out my 60X with a Fresnel on the back to give a very, very, very minute hair light. I think at least on this take, she was like kind of out of that spot for the hair light, but on the shot that we probably use, you'll see it, but we basically just gave a little glow to her just to make her stand out from the background a little bit. And then behind her, you can't really see again in this shot, but we had a practical, which actually thankfully had a dimmer. Originally we were going to use the Aperture MC for that, but it already had a dimmer previously installed into it. And it was just like a heat lamp for the turtle. So we just rearranged that to not blast everywhere and look a little wonky, and just basically aimed it down straight into the tank and dropped the level on it a bunch. And that's pretty much how we achieved this shot. It was very basic FX6 on sticks, and we just did a digital push in. So let's move on to the next shot. For this next one, as you can tell, the shot's a little warmed up. The previous one, I should have warmed it up a little bit for consistency's sake, but we can always do that a little bit in post. But I guess it also kind of makes sense in the sense of it being like a lab. Cooler tones kind of make more sense because it's more sterile. But here in the classroom, what we decided to do, again, the 600 lived basically as our key for pretty much all of this shoot. So you'll see that reoccurring most of the time for our key here, but we set up the 600 with our light dome 2, as per usual, on the left side for our key. Then what I decided to do was I broke out some diffusion grid cloth that I recently got on Amazon. It was about like $16. Nothing crazy. It's pretty cheap and probably throw away if you screw it up here or there. But basically boomed that out on a stand, and I'm not sure exactly what diffusion it is. I'm gonna assume it's probably half, maybe quarter, but probably the light was around like 50-ish%. So we basically keyed from the left with the light dome 2, put that grid cloth on a C-stand, and basically threw it right in front of it, pretty much right on the left border here of the actual frame. We got it really, really close. And in doing so, we obviously get this like nice, even highlights on her face here, a very smooth skin look that we were going through, very like commercial. And as you can see, everyone else kind of falls off in the background here. No one else was lit on this, so we just focused on her. Then lastly, we had in the back, we just boomed out the 60X again with the Fresnel. That was kind of just living on as well as a hair light through most of the shoot. And that ended up giving her, once again, a very, very subtle definition on the backlight here for the back of her hair and shoulder. Again, in this shot particularly, you can't see it too much. It's just very, very subtle. We didn't want to go for anything crazy. And then we also tend to run boom for all of these shots, most of them, just because we were also capturing audio for this. So I had concealed lavs on each student, at least the main talent student. And then we had a nice boom mic over here, a Audio-Technica boom, very small. Basically just right overhead to capture audio, just to have multiple sources. Next, we're moving to our basketball setup. This was a rapid succession cut scene here. And I just kind of wanted to not highlight the whole gym just because the gym was fairly lit. So what we did was we brought in the 500, on the left here from Nanlite. Again, this one just basically had the reflector on it on our frame left here. And then on frame right, basically more or less facing our talent here, that's what all this front highlight is, was once again our true and trusted and behold 600X with the Fresnel on it this time. Not the one that we should be using. It was a small 2x that is like the old Fresnel that Aputure makes, and you know, not that great, but it did work. You're not supposed to use that one on that kind of high-powered light, but we just made it work and A and B'd it off and on for each take just so it didn't get too hot. So this was a very basic, simple setup, just cross-keying with our two most powerful lights we had on set, just to kind of give this more of like a stadium gym highlight look to where just everything else is dark but the player, just to highlight them and not focus on anything else. Then this one here was the moodiest of the day. A very simple setup for this one as well. We had basically a small bounce card down at the bottom here, white, to reflect some light back into her, because obviously the levels of the background here and anything that was black or darker tone definitely got lost. If the image looks a little weird on here, it's just because basically I had to bump up the exposure on the image here, the JPEG, the screen capture, just because it ended up being darker than it actually is in the editing suite. But we plugged in this nice little practical lamp here that we found that gave pretty much next to nothing with level here on her. But we decided to use that, and we boomed up our, once again, 600X here with our light dome 2. And that guy was on our C-stand and struggling to stay up, but we managed to make it work with, you know, counterweight sandbags here. But we basically just threw this guy up. I threw the grid on the light dome 2. And I think this was probably about like 50%. And basically we just went for like a top-down look to where she was basically in a library studying late, relatively, just because obviously everything else is kind of dark. So we motivated from the top as if there was a top light, as well as from the left here a little bit to give her some level from the practical almost. And then obviously we threw this bounce down in the bottom right-hand corner just to give her a little more level in the face and body here. Just because, again, this was a very like contrasty and, dare I say, cinematic look that we were going for with this. I just didn't want to stray too far from the rest of the shots that we did. This one kind of like pushes that a little bit, but I just really wanted to get this like really nice cinematic looking shot with a moody library setup, and I think it worked out pretty well. Then for our last one, again, relatively simple. This was all kind of just a run and gun shoot, so we only had about an hour and a half for each setup. So for this one, basically set up camera shooting through these books here and made sure that, you know, we gave her relatively a visual gateway to look through and deliver lines. So basically, as the same shot goes as the previous shot, I boomed over the 600X for our little top light with grid again. This one I feel like works a little better just because there are top lights, as we can see, behind her with the library of books and everything. So this one I feel like plays a little better. Plus the nice thing was like her face was still looking a little dark, but once she opened this book, it actually bounced a bunch of level back into her face, which was perfect. Originally I had no ND on this shot, but I ND'd down and bumped up the levels. That way we can kind of lose a little bit of these books, still show some detail, but get rid of most of it because we just really didn't need it. Just needed some slight detail to just show context. But I really like this shot. I think it came out pretty good, and we just kept it really simple. The top-down 600X just really worked wonders. And that's it for the lighting breakdown. I hope this video was helpful to some of you guys, whether you're doing a first commercial or maybe your 20th. Maybe you learned something out of this. Let me know down below. Sorry this was kind of not super polished. This is kind of like my first time doing this type of video, so I'm hoping to do more. I'd like to do more breakdowns. I think these are super helpful, especially when you see a shot that someone did and you're like, oh man, how did they achieve that? So this is a good look behind the scenes on how someone might achieve a certain look or setup. So hopefully this was helpful to you guys again, and I will hopefully do some more in the future. Let me know if you guys want that, and hope you have a nice day.